Have you ever held on to something so tightly that it caused you pain? A grudge, a disappointment, a memory that refuses to fade. Tonight, we're going to explore a truth that has brought peace to countless souls across generations. But here's the thing. What I'm about to share in just a few moments will completely change how you see the weight you've been carrying. So stay with me. Don't skip ahead. This matters more than you might realize right now. Welcome. This is your sanctuary, a quiet place where ancient Christian wisdom meets the deep rest your spirit needs. There's nothing you need to do here, nothing to fix, no one you need to become. Just breathe. Just listen. Just be. Before we begin, I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Drop your country or city in the comments. I love knowing how far this message of peace travels. Now, let me tell you about a woman named Catherine. Catherine lived in a small village nestled between rolling hills. She was known throughout the region for her skill as a seamstress. People traveled from neighboring towns to commission her work. She would spend weeks on a single garment, ensuring every thread was perfect, every seam was flawless. But Catherine's perfectionism came with a cost. Each new commission felt like a test. What if this piece wasn't as good as the last? What if her skill was fading? What if people stopped coming? She would lie awake at night, her mind spinning with designs and doubts. The joy she once found in her craft had slowly been replaced by fear. One day, a wealthy merchant arrived at her door. He wanted a tapestry, not just any tapestry, but one that would hang in the town cathedral. It would depict the story of the prodigal son. Everyone would see it. Everyone would judge it. Catherine accepted the commission, but terror gripped her heart. She bought the finest threads. She built a larger loom. She sketched dozens of designs. But when she sat down to begin, her hands trembled. What if she ruined it? What if her stitches were uneven? What if she failed in front of the entire town? Days turned into weeks. The loom stood empty. Her workshop, once filled with the rhythm of her needle, became a prison of silence. The merchant sent messages asking about progress. Catherine made excuses. The weight of expectation crushed her. Now, here's where the story takes a turn. Pay attention to this part, because what happens next is the key to everything we'll explore tonight. Write yes in the comments if you've ever felt paralyzed by the fear of not being good enough. One evening, unable to bear the silence any longer, Catherine walked to the edge of the village. There was a small chapel there, old and weathered. Inside, she found Father Thomas, a priest known for his gentle wisdom. Catherine's voice broke as she explained her struggle. Father Thomas listened without interrupting. When she finished, he didn't offer advice. He didn't quote scripture. Instead, he said something simple. "Come, sit with me by the window." They sat together in silence, watching the sun set over the hills. "No one expects the sunset to last forever," Father Thomas said quietly. "Its beauty is in its fleeting nature. It doesn't worry whether tonight's sunset matches yesterday's. It simply is." He turned to Catherine with kind eyes. "You are not the seamstress," he said. "You are the loom. God is the weaver. Joy, fear, inspiration, emptiness, these are all just threads of different colors. You've been trying to control the threads, to weave only with gold. but a tapestry with only one color has no depth. He paused. Your problem isn't that you're afraid. Your problem is that you believe you shouldn't be afraid. Something shifted in Catherine's chest. The tension in her shoulders began to release. She wasn't her success. She wasn't her fear. She was simply the space through which these things moved. She walked home under a sky full of stars. The next morning, Catherine went to her workshop. She took a deep breath. She didn't try to create the perfect tapestry. She simply wove what was in her heart that day. The tapestry she created wasn't perfect, but it was honest, it was alive, and in weaving her whole self, not just the acceptable parts, she found her freedom. Here's what the Christian faith teaches us about suffering. It's not that life is meant to be perfect. It's not that we should never struggle. The Apostle Paul himself wrote about his thorn in the flesh, a persistent struggle that wouldn't go away. 3 times he asked God to remove it. 3 times God said no, but God's response was profound. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Think about that. Perfect in weakness. Not despite weakness, through weakness. We spend so much energy trying to appear strong, trying to hide our struggles, trying to present a polished version of ourselves to the world. But what if our cracks are where the light gets in? What if our imperfections are what make us human, relatable, real? Catherine learned this truth through her tapestry. When we resist the full spectrum of our human experience, when we push away fear, sadness, or doubt, we create inner tension. We build a dam in the middle of a flowing river. The pressure just builds and builds. But when we accept all of it, when we let ourselves feel the fear without fighting it, when we acknowledge the sadness without drowning in it, that's when we find peace. This isn't about giving up. It's not about lowering our standards or accepting mediocrity. It's about changing our relationship with struggle. Let me give you something practical you can do right now, even as you're listening. When you notice anxiety rising, pause. Take one conscious breath. Instead of immediately trying to fix it or push it away, just name it gently. This is worry. This is the feeling of wanting things to be different. That simple act of naming creates space. In that space, you're no longer the emotion. You're the one who's aware of the emotion. You're the sky, not the storm cloud. Next, get curious about what's underneath. What are you really longing for? If you're anxious about tomorrow, maybe you're longing for security. If you're frustrated with someone, maybe you're longing to be heard or valued. See that longing with gentleness. Don't judge it. Just see it. The way you'd look at a child who wants the rain to stop so they can play outside. Finally, and this is important, soften your body. Our mental resistance shows up as physical tension. Scan your body right now. Are your shoulders hunched? Consciously invite those parts to soften. You can't think your way out of tension, but you can breathe your way through it. This is how we learn to be the loom, to allow all the threads of life, light and dark, joy and sorrow, to be woven into the tapestry of who we are. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He didn't say, "Come to me when you've got it all together." He said, "Come as you are, weary, burdened, imperfect." The rest he offers isn't the absence of struggle. It's the presence of peace in the midst of struggle. Catherine discovered this. Her tapestry, with its imperfect stitches and honest colors, became one of the most beloved pieces in the cathedral. People didn't admire it because it was flawless. They loved it because they saw themselves in it. They saw their own struggles reflected in the dark threads, their own hopes in the golden ones. One elderly woman came to the cathedral every week just to sit before that tapestry. When asked why, she said, "It reminds me that God uses all of me, not just the parts I think are presentable." That's the truth we're exploring tonight. All of you is welcome. All of you is usable. All of you is loved. Before we continue our journey together, take a moment. Feel the rhythm of your own breath. Let your body sink a little deeper into whatever's supporting you. Let the edges of your day begin to soften. We'll explore why everything changes and why that's actually good news. We'll discover how the very impermanence that frightens us can become our greatest teacher. But for now, just rest in this truth. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. You don't have to hide your struggles to be loved. You are the loom, and God is the weaver. All the threads, every single one, belong. Rest in that. Breathe in that. Let it settle deep into your bones. Everything changes. Your body, your circumstances, the people you love. Even this moment, right now, is already passing. For many of us, this truth feels like bad news. We want things to stay the same. We want to hold on to the good moments forever. But what if I told you that change is actually a gift? What if the very thing we fear most is the doorway to freedom? You're about to discover will shift how you see loss, aging, and every ending you've ever faced. There was a potter named Ruth who lived on the edge of a quiet town. She had worked with clay for over 40 years. Her hands knew the feel of wet earth like old friends. People came from far and wide to buy her pottery. Each bowl, each cup seemed to carry a warmth that store-bought items never had. Ruth had a young apprentice named Daniel. He was talented but restless. He wanted to create the perfect piece, something flawless, something that would last forever. He would spend hours on a single pot. When he found even the smallest imperfection, a tiny bubble in the glaze, a slight wobble in the rim, he would smash it and start over. His corner of the workshop was littered with broken pieces. One afternoon, Ruth was working on a beautiful vase. Daniel watched her shape it with ease, her movements smooth and confident. The vase was elegant, balanced, nearly complete. Then, as Ruth lifted it from the wheel, her hand slipped. A deep crack split down one side. Daniel gasped. He expected Ruth to be upset, to curse, to throw the ruined piece away. Instead, Ruth smiled. She reached for a small jar of gold paint. Carefully, patiently, she began to fill the crack with shimmering gold. The floor became a golden river running down the side of the vase. What had been broken was now beautiful in a new way. "This is called kintsugi," Ruth said softly. "The art of precious scars." She placed the vase on a special shelf where other repaired pieces sat, each with its own golden story. "You're trying to make something that denies its own nature," Ruth told Daniel. "Clay comes from earth. It's fragile. It breaks. That's not a flaw. That's its truth." She picked up one of Daniel's broken shards. Every crack tells a story. The heat of the kiln, the hands that held it, maybe a fall. These aren't signs of failure. They're marks of a life lived. Daniel looked at his pile of broken attempts differently now. He had been trying to create something outside of life, outside of time. Ruth was showing him how to find beauty in life's fragility. He picked up 2 broken pieces. For the first time, instead of seeing waste, he saw possibility. He began the slow work of mending, not to hide the break, but to honor it. Here's what the Bible teaches about change and impermanence. Ecclesiastes tells us, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot." This isn't meant to make us sad. It's meant to wake us up. When we understand that everything changes, we stop clinging so desperately. We can enjoy the good moments without needing them to last forever. We can hold what we love with open hands instead of clenched fists. Think about the seasons. Spring doesn't try to hold onto its blossoms. Summer doesn't resist the coming of fall. Each season is complete in itself, even as it gives way to the next. We are the same. Our bodies age, our circumstances shift. The people we love grow and change. Fighting this reality creates suffering. Accepting it creates peace. I know this can be hard to hear, especially if you're facing a difficult change right now. Maybe your health isn't what it used to be. Maybe you've lost someone you love. Maybe life looks nothing like you planned. But here's the truth that Ruth was teaching Daniel. Your cracks are where the light gets in. Your scars tell the story of your strength. The gold that fills your broken places is more precious than perfection ever could be. Let me share something practical you can try tonight. Choose something in your life that's changing. Maybe it's your own aging body. Maybe it's a relationship that's different now. Maybe it's a role you used to play that's shifting. Instead of fighting it, try this. Place your hand on your heart and say these words. This is changing, and that's okay. I am more than this one thing. Feel the truth of that. You are not your body, though you live in it. You are not your role, though you've played it well. You are not your accomplishments, though they matter. You are the awareness that witnesses all these changes. And that awareness, it doesn't age, it doesn't break, it remains steady while everything else flows and shifts around it. Jesus spoke often about seeds. He said, "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." This sounds harsh at first, but look closer. The seed doesn't disappear, it transforms. It becomes something greater than it was. The ending is also a beginning. Your life is like this too. Every ending contains a beginning. Every loss makes space for something new. Not as replacement loss is real and grief is sacred, but as transformation. Ruth understood this. When she looked at Daniel's broken pottery, she didn't see waste. She saw transformation waiting to happen. The pieces hadn't failed. They had simply entered a new stage of their existence. One day, an elderly woman came to Ruth's workshop. She moved slowly, leaning on a cane. She picked up a bowl with a golden crack running through it. Tears filled her eyes. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "I've spent so long being ashamed of my broken places, but this shows me they can be beautiful too." She bought the bowl. Ruth later learned that the woman kept it on her kitchen table. Every morning, as she ate her breakfast, she would trace the golden line with her finger. It reminded her that she didn't need to be perfect to be valuable. that her own cracks, the losses she'd faced, the struggles she'd endured were part of her beauty, not separate from it. This is what happens when we accept impermanence. We stop demanding that life be other than it is. We start seeing the gold in our own broken places. The Apostle Paul wrote about this. He said, "We have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair." Jars of clay, fragile, breakable, and yet containing treasure. That's you. That's all of us. Our fragility isn't a mistake. It's the design. It keeps us humble. It keeps us dependent on grace. It reminds us that we need each other and we need God. Daniel eventually created a piece he was proud of. It wasn't perfect. It had slight variations in the glaze. The rim wasn't exactly even, but it was honest. It was real. It carried the mark of human hands. A few months later, that same piece fell and broke. Daniel's first instinct was disappointment. All that work, wasted. But then he remembered Ruth's words. He gathered the pieces carefully. He mixed gold paint, and he began the patient work of repair. When he finished, the bowl was more beautiful than before. The golden lines told its story. It had been made, broken, and remade. And wasn't that the story of every human life? As you prepare for rest tonight, I want you to think about your own story. The breaks you've experienced, the cracks that run through your life, the places where you feel damaged or worn. What if those places aren't your shame? What if they're your glory? What if the gold that God has been pouring into your cracks all along has been creating something more beautiful than perfect ever could be? The Bible tells us that God keeps our tears in a bottle, that He knows every sorrow, every struggle. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is meaningless. Your broken places matter. They're not obstacles to beauty. They are beauty itself, transformed by love. Ruth lived to be 92. In her final years, her hands shook too much to work the potter's wheel, but she could still paint gold into cracks. She spent her last years repairing the broken pottery that people brought her. "Everything breaks, eventually," she would say, with a gentle smile. But breaking isn't the end. It's just another beginning. Daniel kept that wisdom close. He taught it to his own apprentices, and the golden cracked pottery from that little workshop became known throughout the region, not despite their flaws, but because of them. Let your breath slow now. Feel your body supported. Everything that needs to happen is happening. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are breathing. Life is flowing through you, changing you. And that's not something to fear. It's something to trust. Right now, we'll explore who you really are beneath all these changes. We'll discover that your truest self has been here all along, unchanged and unchangeable. Rest in this. You are a jar of clay filled with treasure. Your cracks let the light shine through. Who are you? Not what you do, not what you've accomplished, not the roles you play, but who are you, really, at your core? This might be the most important question you ever ask yourself, and the answer might surprise you. In fact, what I'm about to share could free you from a burden you've carried your entire life without even knowing it. There was a monk named Peter who lived in a monastery high in the mountains. He was a good man, sincere in his faith, but he struggled with a terrible inner voice, a voice that never stopped criticizing him. "Your prayers aren't deep enough," the voice would say. "You're not as devoted as the other monks. You'll never be holy enough." This voice was with him constantly. During morning prayers, during his work in the garden, even in his dreams, he felt like a failure, like he was letting God down every single day. Peter believed this critical voice was telling him the truth about who he was. A flawed man, an inadequate monk, someone who would never measure up. One day, the abbot of the monastery, an old priest named Father Benedict, called Peter to his room. The abbot had been watching Peter's struggle. He could see the weight the young monk carried. Father Benedict didn't speak at first. Instead, he handed Peter a small wooden cart, beautifully carved, with tiny wheels that actually turned. It was a child's toy. "Tell me, Peter," the abbot said. "What is this?" "It's a cart, Father," Peter answered, confused. "Are you certain?" Father Benedict asked, his eyes gentle. Then he began taking the cart apart. First the wheels, then the axle, then the wooden frame, then the handle. Piece by piece, he disassembled it until parts lay scattered on the table between them. "Now," Father Benedict said, pointing to a wheel. "Is this wheel the cart?" "No, Father." The abbot picked up the axle. "Is this the cart?" "No, Father." "Then where is the cart?" Peter stared at the scattered pieces. Slowly, understanding began to dawn. "The cart," he said quietly, "isn't any single piece. It's a name we give to all these pieces working together. It's temporary. It's..." "Yes?" Father Benedict encouraged. "It's not a thing. It's a process." The old abbot smiled. "And so it is with you, my son. This Peter you think is failing, this self you judge so harshly, where is it? Is it your body? Your body changes every day. Is it your thoughts? Your thoughts come and go like clouds. Is it your feelings? Feelings shift like weather." He gestured to the scattered pieces. "What you call self is like this cart. It's a collection of changing things, body, thoughts, feelings, memories. You give this collection a name, a story, and then you mistake that story for truth. But there is no fixed, solid Peter sitting in the driver's seat. There's just life, unfolding." Peter sat in silence. If there was no fixed self, then who was failing? The critical voice suddenly seemed less powerful, like a king with no kingdom. He wasn't a failure. He was a process. And a process can't fail. It can only unfold. This teaching strikes at the heart of so much suffering. We spend enormous energy building and defending an image of who we are. We collect our memories, our achievements, our roles, our beliefs. We build an identity around them like building a fortress. But here's the problem. That fortress is also a prison. When we believe we are this fixed self, every challenge to that self feels like a threat to our existence. If someone criticizes us, we feel attacked. If we make a mistake, we feel like we are a mistake. If we fail at something, we feel like failures. But what if that's not true? The Bible actually points to this understanding. When Moses asked God his name, God replied, "I am who I am." Not, "I am this specific thing," or "I am that achievement," just "I am," pure being, pure presence, before all the labels and stories. And then, Jesus taught something radical. He said, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." Deny himself? What does that mean? It means letting go of the false self. The self we've constructed from accomplishments and roles and other people's opinions. The self that's always worried about its image, its status, its worth. Underneath that constructed self is your true self, the one created in God's image, the one that was here before you learned your name, the one that will remain when everything else falls away. Let me give you something you can do right now. Close your eyes if you're able. Take a slow breath. Now ask yourself, who is aware right now? Not, what am I aware of? But, who is aware? You might think, I am aware. But then ask, and who is aware of that thought? Keep going back. Who is aware of the awareness? What you'll find is that you can't locate a solid, fixed you anywhere. There's just awareness itself, spacious, open, present. This awareness has been with you your whole life. It watched you as a child. It's watching you now. It will be here tomorrow. But it doesn't age. It doesn't change. It's not affected by your circumstances. This is your true nature. Not the story you tell about yourself, not the roles you play, not the body that's growing older, but the awareness that witnesses it all. There was an old woman in the monastery's village named Anna. She had spent her life defining herself by her roles: wife, mother, teacher. When her husband died, part of her identity died with him. When her children grew up and moved away, another part seemed to disappear. When she retired from teaching, she felt lost. If I'm not these things, she would ask Father Benedict, then who am I? The priest would smile gently. You are who you were before you became anything. You are the space in which all these roles appeared and disappeared. You are the awareness that witnessed every stage of your life. Anna struggled with this at first. It seemed too abstract, too philosophical. But gradually, she began to notice something. The roles had changed, but she, the essential her, the one who was aware, had remained constant throughout. She had been present as a young bride, present as a tired mother, present as a devoted teacher, present now as an elderly woman. The circumstances had shifted endlessly, but the presence, the awareness, the core of who she was, that had never changed. This realization brought profound peace. She stopped needing to define herself by external things. She stopped feeling like she was losing herself as her life changed. She understood that her true self couldn't be lost because it had never been dependent on circumstances to begin with. The Apostle Paul touched on this mystery. He wrote, "I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me." Think about that. I no longer live. The false self, the constructed identity, dies. What remains? Christ lives in me. The divine presence, the eternal awareness, the true self that was there all along. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about recognizing who you've always been underneath all the layers. Peter began to practice this recognition. When the critical voice arose, "You're not good enough," he would pause and ask, "Who is hearing this voice?" The answer was always the same, an awareness that was calm, spacious, and untouched by the criticism. The voice was like a sound passing through a room, The room didn't become the sound, it simply allowed the sound to be there. He noticed something remarkable. The more he identified with the awareness rather than the thoughts, the quieter the critical voice became. Without his belief in it, it had no power. One morning during prayer, a profound peace settled over Peter. He wasn't trying to be holy anymore. He wasn't trying to fix himself. He was simply present, simply aware, simply being. Father Benedict saw the change in him. The tension had left his face. His shoulders no longer carried their usual burden. "You've found it," the abbot said softly. "Found what, Father?" "The truth that you are not the cart. You are the awareness that holds the cart." And that awareness was never broken. It was never failing. It was always whole. Years later, Peter became known for his gentle wisdom. When younger monks would come to him with their struggles, their failures, their self-criticism, he would listen with compassion. Then he would ask them a simple question. "Who is it that knows you're struggling?" That question would stop them. And in that pause, they would touch something deeper than their problems. They would touch the awareness that was witnessing their struggle without being defined by it. As you rest tonight, I invite you to touch that same awareness. Notice that you're noticing. Be aware that you're aware. That witnessing presence, that's your home. That's your true self. You are not your age, though you have an age. You are not your past, though you have a past. You are not your thoughts, though thoughts arise in you. You are not your body, though you live in one. You are the awareness in which all of this appears. And that awareness is as unchanged now as it was when you were 5 years old, as it will be when you draw your last breath. This is who you really are. Not the story, not the roles, not the achievements or failures. Rest in that. Let everything else be what it is. But know yourself as the space in which it all unfolds. Right now, we'll explore how recognizing this changes everything about how we relate to others. We'll discover that separation itself is an illusion. Have you ever felt truly alone, cut off from the world, separate from everyone around you? Tonight, I'm going to share something that might sound impossible at first. This truth has the power to heal the deepest loneliness you've ever felt. Here's what most people never realize. The separation you feel is an illusion. You are not isolated. You never have been. You are part of everything, and everything is part of you. Sound too good to be true? Let me tell you about a hermit named Simon. Simon had spent 15 years living alone in a small cabin deep in the forest. He had left his village seeking peace, believing that solitude would bring him closer to God. He wanted to find a holiness that was untouched by the mess and noise of other people. Each morning, a kind widow from the nearest village would leave a simple meal at the edge of the forest path. A bowl of soup, some bread. Simon would collect it silently and return to his cabin. He never thanked her. He never spoke to anyone. He believed his isolation was spiritual, pure, holy. One morning, as he picked up his bowl of soup, he looked at it differently. He didn't know why. Perhaps God was nudging his heart. Perhaps the loneliness had finally broken through his pride. He looked at the simple brown soup, vegetables floating in broth, and he began to wonder, where did this soup come from? The vegetables, someone had planted them, tended them, watered them under the hot sun. Someone's hands, calloused and worn, had pulled them from the earth. Someone else had brought them to market. The widow had purchased them with money earned through her own labor. The water in the soup, it had fallen as rain from clouds that had traveled across the sky from a distant ocean. The ocean itself was fed by rivers, and rivers by streams, and streams by the morning dew. The bowl he held, a potter had shaped it. That potter had learned his craft from someone else. The clay had come from the earth, formed over thousands of years. The bread beside it, wheat planted by a farmer, ground into flour by a miller, baked by hands that had also baked bread for their own family. Simon stared at this simple meal, his eyes filled with tears. This soup contained the sun, the rain, the earth, the labor and love of countless people. His solitary meal was actually a gift from the entire world. He had tried so hard to be separate, to be independent, to find God alone. But he was discovering something profound. Even here, in his isolated cabin, he was not alone. He was held by a web of connections so vast he could barely comprehend it. His food, his breath, his clothing, the wood of his cabin, everything came from somewhere else, from someone else. He existed only because countless others existed. That day, Simon walked to the village. The widow was shocked to see him. 15 years of silence, and now here he stood at her door. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "Thank you for feeding me all these years. I thought I was alone. I thought I was finding God in separation. But you've been showing me God all along, in every bowl, every loaf, every act of kindness." The widow smiled, tears in her own eyes. "We're all connected, Simon. That's what love is. That's what God is, not in isolation, but in the space between us. This is the truth that Scripture teaches us." Paul wrote to the Corinthians, "The body is a unit, though it is made up of many parts. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it." He was talking about the church, but he was also describing reality itself. We are not separate units. We are parts of one body. What affects one affects all. What heals one heals all. Jesus prayed this same truth, that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they also may be one in us. One. Not many separate things trying to get along, but one, at the deepest level. This isn't just poetry. It's truth you can experience right now. Think about your breath. The air entering your lungs right now, where did it come from? It was exhaled by trees during the day. Those trees grew because of sunlight that traveled 93 million miles from the sun. The sun itself was born from a cloud of cosmic dust billions of years ago. That breath connects you to trees, to the sun, to the birth of the universe itself. The water in your body, it's been part of clouds, rivers, oceans. It's been inside other people, other animals, other plants. You are literally made of the same substance that makes up the rest of the world. You are not separate from nature. You are nature, looking at itself. You are not separate from other people. You are other people, meeting yourself in different forms. There was an elderly farmer named Joseph who understood this deeply. He had worked the same land for 60 years. He would tell anyone who listened, "I don't own this land. I belong to it." He knew every tree, every stone, every curve of the hills. When a tree died, he felt it. When the rain came after drought, he wept with gratitude. When his neighbor's crops failed, Joseph's heart ached as if his own had failed. "How can I be happy when my neighbor suffers?" he would say. "His suffering is my suffering. We drink from the same rain. We depend on the same earth. His pain is my pain." This wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. One year, a terrible frost came late in spring. It destroyed Joseph's entire crop. Months of work gone in one night. He stood in his ruined field, looking at the blackened plants. His neighbors came to help. They brought food from their own stores. They offered seeds for replanting. They worked his fields alongside him. Joseph wept, but not from loss. He wept because he could see the truth so clearly. He had never been alone. His life was woven together with every person in the valley. Their generosity toward him was like water flowing downhill, natural, inevitable, because they were all part of the same living system. "This is what the body of Christ means," he told Father Benedict when the priest came to visit. "We are not separate believers trying to love each other. We are one body, feeling each other's pain and joy because we share the same life." The implications of this are staggering. When you hurt someone, you hurt yourself. Not as punishment, but as natural consequence. You are damaging part of the body you're part of. When you help someone, you help yourself. Not selfishly, but truly. You are healing the body you belong to. When you judge someone harshly, you're judging a part of yourself. When you forgive someone, you're freeing yourself. This is why Jesus taught, love your neighbor as yourself, not like yourself, as yourself. Because at the deepest level, your neighbor is yourself in a different form. Let me give you something practical to do with this understanding. Think of someone you find difficult, someone who irritates you, someone you've been holding at a distance. Now, imagine their life. Really imagine it. What struggles might they carry that you can't see? What pains shape them into who they are? What fears drive their behavior? Keep imagining until you can feel, even slightly, that they are not so different from you, that they want the same things you want: to be safe, to be loved, to matter, to be at peace. This person is not your enemy. They are you, wearing a different face, walking a different path. When you can see this, something in your heart softens. The wall between you begins to dissolve, not because you approve of everything they do, but because you recognize your shared humanity, your shared struggle, your shared divine origin. Simon learned this after he returned to the village. He had spent 15 years trying to be holy through separation. Now he discovered true holiness in connection. He helped the widow who had fed him all those years. He worked alongside farmers in their fields. He sat with the sick and dying, holding their hands. He played with children in the village square, and he found more of God in these connections than he ever had in isolation. Because God is not found by removing yourself from the world. God is found in the space between people, in the giving and receiving, in the seeing and being seen, in the loving and being loved. One day, a young man came to Simon, troubled. "Father Simon, I want to love everyone as Christ taught, but some people are so difficult. How do I love them?" Simon smiled. "You're asking the wrong question. You're thinking of them as separate from you, as them and you. But there is no them. There is only us, only we." He gestured to the village around them. "That difficult person is God in disguise. showing you a part of yourself you haven't accepted yet. They are your teacher, your mirror, your opportunity to grow. The young man struggled to understand. But they hurt me. How can they be me? Have you never hurt yourself? Simon asked gently. Have you never been your own harsh critic, your own obstacle? When you hurt others, aren't you the difficult person in their story? The young man fell silent. We are all broken, Simon continued. We are all struggling. We are all doing our best with the understanding we have, and we are all part of the same body. When you understand this, really understand it, love becomes natural, not forced, not obligatory, but natural, like a plant growing toward light. As you settle into rest tonight, feel this truth in your body. You are breathing air that others have breathed. You are lying on earth that holds countless others. Your heart can feel it. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You cannot be alone, because separation itself is illusion. You are held by the earth, warmed by the sun, surrounded by love, even when you can't see it. Right now, we'll explore how to walk through life with balance, how to find the middle way between extremes, how to live with wisdom and grace. Rest in connection. Rest in the truth that you belong, that you are part of the great body of creation, that your life matters because you are woven into everything that is. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. Rest in that vastness. Rest in that belonging. You are home. Life is full of extremes. We push too hard or give up entirely. We're too strict with ourselves or too lenient. We swing from one side to the other, exhausted by the constant motion. But what if there's another way? What if peace is found not at either extreme, but in the gentle center between them? This is what we're exploring tonight, and what you're about to learn could change how you approach every challenge you face. There was a young priest named Thomas who served a small parish in a farming community. He was devoted to his calling, but he had a problem. He believed that holiness required perfection. He would fast until he felt dizzy. He would pray for hours until his knees ached. He would deny himself sleep to study scripture through the night. When parishioners came with problems, he would judge them harshly for their weaknesses. You must be stronger, he would tell them. You must try harder. God demands your complete dedication. His congregation began to fear him. Children hid when they saw him coming. Adults avoided asking for his counsel. The parish grew cold and quiet. Thomas didn't understand. He was doing everything right, wasn't he? He was sacrificing, pushing himself, demanding excellence. One day, an old bishop came to visit the parish. Bishop Marcus had served God for 50 years. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were kind. He watched Thomas for several days, saying nothing. On the third evening, the bishop invited Thomas to walk with him along the river. They walked in silence until they heard music drifting across the water. A young woman sat on the opposite bank, tuning a guitar. They watched as she tightened a string. She plucked it too tight. The string snapped with a sharp crack. She replaced it and tried again, leaving it looser this time. She plucked it again. Too loose, it made a dull, lifeless sound. She adjusted it carefully, finding the place between too tight and too loose. When she plucked it this time, the note rang clear and beautiful. Bishop Marcus turned to Thomas. Do you see? See what? Your Grace? The string that's too tight breaks. The string that's too loose makes no music. But the string tuned just right, that's where beauty lives. He placed a gentle hand on Thomas's shoulder. You are wound too tight, my son. You're going to break. And in your breaking, you'll be no help to anyone. Not to yourself, not to your congregation, not even to God. Thomas felt tears rising. But I thought devotion meant pushing harder, denying more, trying to be perfect. Devotion means being present, the bishop said, being available, being human. Jesus himself rested. He ate with sinners. He enjoyed weddings and celebrations. He was fully divine and fully human. Not one or the other, both. He gestured back toward the guitar player. That is the middle way. Not too tight, not too loose, just right. Over the following weeks, Thomas began to change his approach. He still prayed, but he also rested. He still fasted, but not to the point of illness. He still served, but he also allowed himself moments of joy. Most importantly, he stopped judging his parishioners so harshly. He began to meet them with compassion rather than criticism. He listened to their struggles without immediately demanding they do better. Something remarkable happened. People began to trust him again. Children ran to greet him instead of hiding. Adults sought his counsel. The parish came alive with warmth and connection. Thomas had discovered what the scripture teaches. Let your gentleness be evident to all. Not harshness, not weakness, gentleness, the middle way. This principle applies to every area of life, especially as we grow older. Think about your body. One extreme is to ignore it completely, eating poorly, never moving, neglecting its needs. The other extreme is to obsess over it, punishing exercise, restrictive diets, constant anxiety about every ache and pain. The middle way is to treat your body with respect, to nourish it well without obsession, to move it gently without punishment, to listen to what it needs and respond with kindness. Your body is not your enemy. It's your companion on this journey. It deserves your care, not your criticism. The same is true of rest. One extreme is laziness, avoiding all challenge, refusing all effort, giving up on growth. The other extreme is relentless drivenness, never stopping, never resting, pushing until you collapse. The middle way is balanced effort, working with purpose but resting with intention, knowing when to push and when to pause. Understanding that rest is not weakness but wisdom. There was a farmer in Thomas's parish named Michael. He had always been a hard worker, but as he grew older, his body couldn't maintain the same pace. This frustrated him deeply. I'm useless, he told Thomas one day. I can't work like I used to. I have to stop and rest. I'm weak. Thomas remembered Bishop Marcus's lesson about the guitar string. Michael, he said gently, are you too tight or too loose right now? The farmer looked confused. You're judging yourself harshly for needing rest. That's being too tight, wound up, critical, demanding. But if you gave up entirely and did nothing, that would be too loose. Neither extreme serves you. He smiled. What if you worked in the morning when you have energy, rested in the heat of the day, did light tasks in the evening, not pushing to exhaustion, but not giving up either, just finding what's right for this season of your life? Michael tried this approach. He discovered that by working with his body's rhythm, instead of against it, he actually accomplished more. Not through force, but through wisdom. Not through pushing harder, but through finding balance. The middle way applies to emotions too. One extreme is suppression, pushing feelings down, denying they exist, pretending everything is fine. This creates pressure that eventually explodes. The other extreme is being controlled by every feeling, drowning in sadness, ruled by anger, swept away by every emotional wave. The middle way is to feel your feelings without being ruled by them, to acknowledge them without being consumed by them, to say, "I feel sad right now," instead of, "I am sadness," to say, "Anger is here," instead of, "I am angry." You are the sky. Emotions are weather passing through. The sky doesn't fight the weather. It allows the weather to be what it is while remaining vast and unchanged. An elderly woman named Dorothy came to Thomas struggling with grief. Her husband of 40 years had died. Some people told her, "Stay busy, don't think about it." Others said, "You need to let yourself fall apart completely." Both were extremes. Thomas helped her find the middle way. "Allow yourself to grieve," he said. "Feel the sadness when it comes, but also allow yourself moments of joy. Let yourself laugh at a memory. Let yourself enjoy the sunshine. You don't have to choose between grief and life. You can hold both." Dorothy learned to be gentle with herself. Some days she cried. Some days she smiled. Some days both happened within the same hour. She stopped judging herself for not grieving correctly. She found her own rhythm, her own balance. This is the wisdom of the middle way. It's not compromise. It's not settling for less. It's finding the place where life can flow naturally, without force and without collapse. Jesus embodied this perfectly. He was neither a harsh ascetic nor a careless hedonist. He fasted, but he also feasted. He prayed alone, but he also celebrated with others. He challenged sin, but he showed mercy to sinners. He was fully engaged with life while remaining centered in God. The religious leaders of his time criticized him for this. "He eats with tax collectors and sinners," they complained. He was too loose with the rules, they thought. But he also criticized them for being too tight, for creating burdens too heavy to carry, for valuing law over love, for missing the heart of what God desired. He walked the middle way, and he invited others to do the same. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Easy, light, not harsh, not impossible, just right. As you prepare for rest tonight, check where you might be too tight or too loose. Are you being too hard on yourself? Too critical? Too demanding? Then soften. Breathe. Give yourself the grace you'd give a dear friend. Are you avoiding what needs attention? Giving up too easily? Letting everything slide? Then gently re-engage. Not with force, but with kind intention. Find the place between. The place where your breath flows naturally, where your heart beats steadily, where you can be present without being perfect, where you can rest without guilt. This is the middle way. Not a fixed point, but a living balance. A dance you learn moment by moment, listening to the wisdom of your body, your heart, your spirit. Thomas never forgot the lesson of the guitar string. Years later, when he became a bishop himself, he would share that story with struggling young priests. "Too tight, you break," he would say. "Too loose, you make no music. But just right, that's where God's grace flows through you like a beautiful song." Right now, we'll explore how to open your heart, how to cultivate the kind of love that heals both giver and receiver, how to tend the garden of your soul, find your balance, feel the rightness of being neither too tight nor too loose. Feel yourself tuned to the perfect pitch for this moment. Let your body settle. Let your breath flow. Let everything be just as it is. You are the string, tuned perfectly by the master's hand. And the music you make is your life, lived in balance, lived in grace. Rest in that harmony. Your heart is like a garden. What grows there depends on what you plant, what you water, what you tend with care. For many of us, the garden has become overgrown with weeds, bitterness, resentment, old hurts we can't seem to let go. We walk through our own hearts and find thorns everywhere we step. But tonight, you're going to learn how to tend your garden differently, how to plant seeds of kindness that will bloom into a peace you've been longing for. There was a deacon named Robert who served at the same parish as Father Thomas. Robert was known for his efficiency and his sharp tongue. He ran the church finances, organized events, managed schedules. Everything had to be done properly, on time, exactly right. But Robert had a problem. He was hard on everyone, including himself. When volunteers made mistakes, he corrected them harshly. When others moved too slowly, he showed his irritation. When things didn't go according to plan, he snapped at whoever was nearby. Most of all, Robert was cruel to himself. Every evening, he would review his day and catalogue his failures. Every flaw, every moment he could have done better. His inner voice was relentless, never satisfied, never kind. He told himself this was discipline. This was how you stayed sharp, stayed effective, stayed useful. But the truth was, Robert was exhausted. His heart had become a battlefield. There was no peace there, no rest, only constant criticism and judgment. One Sunday, Father Thomas gave Robert an unusual assignment. "I want you to do something for me," Thomas said. "Every day this week, take a smooth stone and walk around the church grounds. As you walk, repeat these words: 'May I be at peace, may I be well.'" Robert stared at him. "That's it? Just walk and say words? Just walk and say words," Thomas confirmed. Robert thought it was foolish. What would repeating empty phrases accomplish? He needed more discipline, not less, more structure, not silly rituals. But he had promised Father Thomas. So, reluctantly, he began. The first day felt ridiculous. He walked the path behind the church, stone in hand, muttering through clenched teeth, "May I be at peace, may I be well." The words felt like lies. He wasn't at peace. He wasn't well. Why was he pretending? The second day was worse. His mind screamed in protest. "This is stupid. You're wasting time. You have real work to do." But he continued. On the third day, something small shifted. As he walked past the garden, he saw a mother robin feeding her chicks. She was so gentle with them, so patient. Something warm stirred in his chest, faint but real. That day, When he said, "May I be at peace," it felt slightly less like a lie. He kept walking, kept repeating the words. By the 5th day, he noticed he was walking slower. The tension in his jaw had eased. When he said, "May I be well," he felt a small opening in his heart, like a door cracked an inch. On the 6th day, he saw a young volunteer struggling to arrange chairs for an event. His old instinct was to criticize, to point out the inefficiency, but instead, unbidden, a thought arose. May he be at peace. It was quiet, barely there, but it was real. Robert set down his stone and went to help the young man, working alongside him in silence. No criticism, no correction, just presence. The volunteer looked at him, surprised and grateful. That night, for the first time in years, Robert's inner voice was quiet. Not silent thoughts still came, but they didn't consume him. They passed like clouds while he remained as the sky. This is the practice of cultivating kindness. Christians call it love, charity, grace. It starts with yourself and spreads outward like ripples on water. The scripture teaches this clearly. Jesus said the greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. As yourself. Not instead of yourself, as yourself. Most of us skip that part. We try to love others while treating ourselves with harshness. We give grace to everyone except the person in the mirror. But a well that's empty cannot fill other cups. A heart that shows itself no mercy has no mercy to give. This isn't selfishness. It's wisdom. When you speak kindly to yourself, you learn the language of kindness. When you forgive your own failures, you learn how forgiveness works. When you give yourself grace, you understand what grace feels like. Then, naturally, that kindness flows toward others. Robert discovered this gradually. As he practiced speaking gently to himself, he found it easier to speak gently to others. As he stopped judging his own mistakes so harshly, he stopped judging others so harshly. The volunteers at the church noticed the change. Robert was still organized, still efficient, but now there was warmth, patience, understanding. One day, a new volunteer forgot to lock the church hall after an event. In the past, Robert would have been furious. He would have lectured about responsibility and attention to detail. Instead, he simply said, "It happens. Let me show you the routine so you'll remember next time." The volunteer nearly cried with relief. "Thank you for not being angry with me." Robert smiled. "I've forgotten to lock doors too. We're all learning." This is what happens when you tend the garden of your heart. The weeds of bitterness start to fade. Seeds of kindness begin to bloom. And what blooms inside you eventually blossoms toward others. Let me give you a simple practice you can do tonight. And every night, place your hand on your heart. Feel the warmth there. Feel your heartbeat, faithful and constant, keeping you alive without any effort from you. Then, gently, say these words. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. You don't have to feel anything dramatic. You don't have to force emotion. Just plant the seed. Speak the words with gentle intention, the way you'd speak to someone you dearly love. Do this for yourself first. Every day, water this seed, tend this garden. After some time, maybe days, maybe weeks, you'll notice something growing. a softness, a kindness toward yourself that wasn't there before. Then, bring to mind someone you love. Picture their face. Feel your natural affection for them and extend the same words. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Feel the warmth of wishing them well. Let it fill your chest. Next, and this is where it gets interesting, think of someone neutral, someone you see but don't know well. The cashier at the store, the postal worker, a neighbor you wave to but never speak with. Extend the same wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. Why? Because every person you pass is fighting battles you cannot see. Every stranger carries burdens you'll never know about. And when you wish them well, even silently, you're acknowledging their humanity. Think of someone difficult, someone who has hurt you, someone you've been holding at a distance. You don't have to like them. You don't have to approve of their actions. But try, just for a moment, to wish them peace. May you be free from suffering. Why would you do this? Because people who are at peace don't cause harm. If you could remove all the pain and fear from someone who hurt you, they wouldn't have hurt you in the first place. When you wish peace for someone who wronged you, you're not excusing them. You're releasing yourself from carrying them as a weight in your heart. There was an elderly woman in Robert's parish named Helen. She had been carrying a grudge against her sister for 20 years. The sister had said something hurtful at their mother's funeral, and Helen had never forgiven her. For 20 years, this resentment had been a stone in Helen's heart. Every time she thought of her sister, the old wound opened fresh. When Father Thomas taught about extending kindness even to difficult people, Helen resisted. She doesn't deserve my kindness. She never even apologized. Thomas spoke gently. This isn't about what she deserves. It's about what you deserve. You deserve to be free. You deserve a heart that isn't heavy with bitterness. This weight you're carrying, it's hurting you far more than it's hurting her. Helen struggled with this. But finally, in the quiet of her own home, she tried. She pictured her sister and, with great effort, whispered, "May you be at peace." It felt forced, insincere, but she kept trying. Slowly, over weeks, something began to shift. The stone in her heart started to soften. She began to remember good times with her sister, not just the hurt. She began to wonder what pain her sister might have been carrying that day at the funeral. Eventually, Helen wrote a letter, not demanding an apology, just reaching out, expressing care. Her sister wrote back, and in her letter, she apologized for words spoken in grief. She had been carrying the same burden all these years. The sisters reconciled. But even if they hadn't, Helen would have been free, because she had learned to tend her own heart with kindness, and that kindness had dissolved the bitterness that had been poisoning her. The Apostle Paul wrote, "If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." As far as it depends on you. You cannot control others. You cannot make them kind or make them apologize. But you can control the garden of your own heart. You can choose what to plant there. Plant bitterness, and bitterness grows. Plant kindness, and kindness blooms. Robert eventually became known as one of the gentlest men in the parish. People would seek him out, not for his efficiency, but for his compassion. Children ran to him. The elderly trusted him. The struggling found comfort in his presence. One day, a young man asked him, "How did you become so kind? You seem so peaceful." Robert smiled and pulled a smooth stone from his pocket. He still carried it. Years later, "I learned to be kind to myself first," he said. "I learned that my heart was a garden that needed tending, and I learned that what I plant there spreads to everyone I meet." As you prepare for sleep tonight, tend your garden. Speak kindly to yourself. Wish yourself well. Plant seeds of peace in the soil of your heart. Let those seeds grow while you rest. Let them bloom in the darkness. Let them send roots deep into your soul. Tomorrow, you'll wake to find your garden changed. Not perfect, not without weeds, but fuller, greener, more alive with the possibility of love. Right now, we'll discover something that might surprise you. We'll explore how you are far more than you've been taught to believe, how your true nature shines brighter than you can imagine. Tend your garden, water it with kindness, let it rest in the gentle dark. What if I told you that beneath all your mistakes, all your regrets, all your feelings of inadequacy, there is something pure, something untouched, something that has been whole from the very beginning? Most of us don't believe this. We see our flaws and assume they go all the way through us. We see our failures and think they define us. You're going to discover a truth that could change everything. A truth about who you really are at your core. There was a beggar named William who lived on the streets of a large city. His coat was threadbare, patched with scraps of fabric. His shoes had holes in them. He spent his days asking for spare change, his nights sleeping in doorways. William had lived this way for so long that he'd forgotten any other life was possible. He saw himself as worthless, broken, the lowest of the low. When people passed him without looking, he understood. Why would anyone see value in someone like him? One winter night, as he slept in his usual doorway, something happened that he would never forget. A wealthy merchant, hurrying home through the cold, recognized William, not as a beggar, as an old friend. This merchant had known William years ago, before hardship had driven him to the streets, and this merchant had loved William like a brother. The merchant's heart broke seeing his friend in such condition. He wanted to help, to give William money, to restore what had been lost. But he also knew that William, in his pride and shame, might refuse a handout. So the merchant did something unusual. While William slept, he carefully sewed a diamond into the lining of William's tattered coat. A real diamond, perfectly cut, worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. He sewed it deep into the hem, where it wouldn't be found by accident, but where it would stay safe, traveling with William wherever he went. Then the merchant left, praying that one day William would discover what he carried. Years passed. William continued his life on the streets. He begged for food. He suffered through cold winters and hot summers. He felt the weight of his worthlessness every day. The diamond was with him the entire time. In his coat, against his body, he carried a fortune and didn't know it. One day, many years later, the merchant happened to pass through the same streets. He saw William, older now, still begging, still suffering. The merchant stopped. "William, old friend, what are you still doing here? Years ago, I gave you a diamond, a fortune. It should have changed your life completely." William stared at him, confused. "You gave me nothing. I have nothing. I am nothing." The merchant knelt down, and took the hem of William's coat. With a small knife, he cut the old threads he had sewn so long ago. The diamond fell into his palm, catching the sunlight, exploding with brilliant light. William couldn't speak. He had been rich all along. He had carried treasure against his heart for years, and he had lived as a beggar because he didn't know. This is the story Jesus told in different words. He said the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. It's already there. It's been there all along. We just haven't discovered it yet. The Apostle Paul wrote something profound. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? God's Spirit dwelling in you. Not someday, not after you fix yourself, not when you become good enough. Now, already, always. This is the truth that most of us have forgotten. We are not broken things trying to become whole. We are whole things that have forgotten our wholeness. We are not sinners trying to become holy. We are holy beings who have temporarily forgotten our true nature. The sin, the mistakes, the failures, these are like dirt on a diamond. Real, yes. But they don't change what's underneath. They don't touch the fundamental brightness of what you are. There was a woman in William City named Grace. She had made terrible mistakes in her younger years. She had hurt people. She had chosen selfishness over love. She had broken trust and damaged relationships. Now, in her later years, she carried crushing guilt. She believed she was fundamentally bad, irredeemable. She went to church, but she sat in the back, feeling unworthy to be there. Father Thomas noticed her sitting alone, week after week. He approached her gently one Sunday after the service. "You sit so far back," he said kindly, "as if you're trying to hide." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I don't belong here, Father. Not with good people. If they knew what I've done." Thomas invited her to walk with him in the church garden. They sat on a bench beneath an old oak tree. "Tell me," he said, "before you did those things you regret, what were you?" I don't know, young, foolish." "No," Thomas said gently. "Before that, when you were a baby, before you could make any choices at all, what were you then?" Grace thought about this. "I was innocent, I suppose." "You were made in the image of God," Thomas said. "Perfect, complete, holy." He picked up a leaf that had fallen, covered in dirt from the ground. "Is this leaf made of dirt?" "No. It's a leaf with dirt on it." "Exactly. The dirt doesn't change what the leaf is. It's temporary. The leaf can be washed clean." He brushed the dirt away, revealing the leaf's green beneath. "Your sins are like this dirt. Real, yes. They've caused harm, yes, but they haven't changed your fundamental nature. You are still made in God's image. You are still His temple. The light is still there, just covered over." Grace wept. She had spent decades believing she was the dirt. She had forgotten she was the leaf. This is the message of grace. Not that our mistakes don't matter, not that sin is an illusion, but that underneath everything, there is something in us that cannot be stained, cannot be destroyed, cannot be lost. Jesus looked at people, others called sinners, tax collectors, prostitutes, outcasts, and he saw their true nature. He saw the light beneath the dirt, and when he spoke to that light, it responded. People changed not because he condemned them, but because he saw what they really were. He said, "You are the light of the world." Not, "You should become the light." Not, "You will be the light someday." You are, now, already. When you criticize yourself, when you believe you're fundamentally broken, you're arguing with God. You're saying, "You made me wrong. You put your spirit in the wrong place. Your image in me is flawed." But God doesn't make mistakes. Let me give you something to practice tonight. Place your hand over your heart. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. Take a slow breath. Now say these words, quietly or silently. "Beneath everything I think is wrong with me, my nature is pure. Beneath all my mistakes, my essence is good. Beneath all my failures, the image of God remains perfect." You might not believe it fully yet. That's okay. You're not trying to convince yourself. You're just reminding yourself of what's true. The dirt on the diamond doesn't change the diamond. The clouds covering the sun don't change the sun. Your mistakes and struggles don't change what you fundamentally are. William eventually sold his diamond. With the money, he rented a small apartment. He bought decent clothes. He found simple work. His external life changed dramatically, but something even more important changed. He stopped seeing himself as a beggar. He stopped believing he was worthless. He realized he had been carrying treasure all along, not just in his coat, but in his very being. He began helping other people on the streets, not with money, but with dignity. He would look them in the eye and speak to them as equals, because he knew now every person carries a diamond. Every person has worth that circumstances cannot erase. Grace also changed. She didn't suddenly become perfect. She still made mistakes. She still had regrets. But she stopped defining herself by her worst moments. She started sitting in the front of the church, not because she thought she was better than others, but because she finally believed she belonged. She began volunteering with young people who were making the same kinds of mistakes she had made. She didn't lecture them. She simply said, "You are more than your worst choice. You carry something precious inside you. Don't forget that." Many of those young people changed their paths, not because Grace condemned them, but because she saw past their behavior to their true nature. And when someone sees the light in you, it's easier to see it yourself. The psalmist wrote, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Not, "I will be wonderfully made if I improve." Not, "I was wonderfully made before I messed up." I am, present tense, right now, as you are, fearfully and wonderfully made, with the image of God stamped on your soul, with His Spirit dwelling in you, with treasure sewn into the fabric of your being. You might feel like a beggar. You might believe you're nothing, but you're carrying a diamond. You've been carrying it all along. This doesn't mean you ignore areas where you need to grow. It doesn't mean you pretend sin doesn't matter. It means you stop trying to become worthy and start recognizing you already are. It means you clean the dirt off the diamond instead of trying to create the diamond from scratch. You remove what's covering the light instead of trying to generate light where you think there's only darkness. As you settle into rest tonight, feel this truth settling into your bones. You are not trying to become good enough. You are already loved, already valuable, already whole. The work isn't to create something that isn't there. The work is to remember what's been there all along. Right now, we'll explore how to live from this truth, how to stay present in each moment, how to be fully awake to the gift of your life. Rest in your true nature. Rest in the knowledge that beneath everything, you are light. You are loved. You are God's dwelling place. The diamond is already sewn into your coat. You've been carrying it all along. You've always been rich. You just forgot. Remember now. Remember who you are. Where is your mind right now? Are you fully here, listening to these words? Or is part of you already somewhere else, replaying yesterday, planning tomorrow, worrying about what might never happen? Most of us spend our lives anywhere but here. We miss the only moment we actually have because we're lost in moments that no longer exist or haven't yet arrived. You're going to learn the art of coming home, the practice of being fully present. And this simple skill might be the most powerful thing you ever learn. There was a woman named Martha who lived in the same village as Father Thomas. She was always busy, always moving, always doing. Her mind raced from task to task, like a bird flitting from branch to branch, never landing, never still. She would cook dinner while planning tomorrow's errands. She would visit friends while mentally reviewing her to-do list. She would sit in church while thinking about the laundry waiting at home. Martha was exhausted. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt truly rested, even after a full night's sleep, because her mind never rested, never stopped, never arrived in the present moment. One Sunday, Father Thomas preached about Mary and Martha from the Gospel, the story where Martha rushes around serving while Mary sits at Jesus' feet, simply listening, simply present. Martha felt defensive hearing this. Someone had to do the work, didn't they? Someone had to keep everything running. What would happen if everyone just sat around being present? After the service, she approached Father Thomas, ready to defend herself. But before she could speak, he said something unexpected. Martha, when you walk home today, I want you to try something. Count your steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just count. Feel your feet touching the ground. When your mind wanders to other things, gently bring it back to counting your steps. That's it? She asked. Just count my steps. Just count your steps, he confirmed. Martha thought it was too simple to matter, but she tried it anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4. Left foot, right foot. The feeling of the path beneath her shoes. Her mind immediately jumped to dinner. What should she cook? Did she have enough? She caught herself, back to counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was harder than she expected. Her mind kept pulling away, yanking her attention toward 1,000 other things. But each time, she gently guided it back. Steps, breathing, the cool breeze on her face. Something strange happened. For just a few moments, she was fully there, not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow, just walking, just breathing, just alive in that moment. And in those few moments, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace, not because her circumstances had changed, not because her tasks had disappeared, but because for once, she wasn't scattered across time. She was gathered into now. This is what Scripture means when it says, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." Not yesterday, not tomorrow. This day, this moment, this breath. Jesus taught this constantly. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. He wasn't saying tomorrow doesn't matter. He was saying tomorrow doesn't exist yet. All you have is now. The only moment you can actually live in, is this one. The only breath you can actually breathe is this one. The only peace you can actually experience is peace right now. Most of our suffering comes from living everywhere but here. We suffer over things that already happened and can't be changed. We suffer over things that haven't happened and might never happen. We create problems that exist only in our minds. But when you come fully into this moment, you often find that right now, in this actual moment, you're okay. You're breathing. You're alive. You're here. Martha continued practicing, not just while walking, but throughout her day. When washing dishes, she would feel the warm water on her hands. Really feel it. The temperature, the texture of the soap, the sound of water running. When talking with friends, she would actually listen instead of planning her next words. She would see their faces, hear their voices, be present to them instead of being lost in her own thoughts. When eating, she would taste her food, slowly, noticing flavors and textures she'd been too rushed to notice before. Something remarkable happened. Her tasks didn't pile up because she was being lazy or unproductive. In fact, she accomplished more, because when she was washing dishes, she was only washing dishes, not also worrying about 10 other things. She was focused, efficient, present, but more than that, her life started to feel different, fuller, richer, like she was actually living it instead of just rushing through it. There was an elderly man in the village named George. He had worked hard his whole life, always planning for retirement. "When I retire," he would say, "then I'll really live. Then I'll enjoy life." He retired at 65, but he didn't know how to stop planning. His mind kept racing toward the next thing, the next project, the next goal. At 70, he said, "When my health is better, then I'll enjoy life." At 75, "When the weather improves, then I'll enjoy life." At 80, lying in a hospital bed, he finally realized the truth. He had spent his entire life waiting for the right moment to live, and the right moment had been every moment. He had missed it all by living somewhere other than where he was. Martha visited him in the hospital. They had become friends through the church. She held his hand and shared what she'd learned about presence. "George," she said gently, "you're alive right now. This moment, this is your life. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, right now." George closed his eyes. He felt the sheets against his skin, the warmth of Martha's hand, the air moving in and out of his lungs. He heard birds outside the window. For the first time in decades, he was fully present. And he smiled. "I've been missing everything," he whispered. "My whole life, I've been missing it." "You're not missing this moment," Martha said. "You're here now. That's what matters." This is the practice that Jesus embodied. When he healed people, he was fully present to them. When he taught, he was fully present to his words. When he prayed, he was fully present to the Father. Even on the cross, he was present, aware of the thief beside him, aware of his mother below, aware of each moment as it unfolded. He lived every moment completely. That's why his 3 years of ministry changed the world. Not because he lived longer than others, but because he lived more fully. Let me teach you a simple practice you can do anytime, anywhere. It's called the 5 senses practice. When you notice your mind spinning with worry or regret, pause. Then notice, 5 things you can see, really see them. Colors, shapes, light and shadow. 4 things you can hear. The hum of appliances, distant traffic, your own breath, birds outside. 3 things you can feel. The chair supporting you, the air on your skin, the fabric of your clothes. 2 things you can smell, even faint scents, the smell of the room, your own skin. 1 thing you can taste, even if it's just the taste of your own mouth. This simple practice brings you immediately into the present moment, because your senses can only operate now. Your eyes can't see yesterday. Your ears can't hear tomorrow. Your senses are anchors to the present. Martha taught this practice to others in the parish. Many found it helpful, especially those struggling with anxiety or grief. One woman said, "When I do this, I realize that right now, in this actual moment, I'm usually okay. It's only when I think about the past or future that I panic. But right now, I'm just sitting, breathing, alive, and that's enough." The Apostle Paul wrote something interesting. He said, "I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances." Whatever the circumstances, not when circumstances are perfect, but whatever they are. How is that possible? Because Paul had learned to live in the present moment. He could be content in prison because in that moment he was alive. He could be content in hardship because in that moment he had breath. He found God not in perfect circumstances, but in perfect presence. This doesn't mean we ignore problems or stop planning. It means we do what needs doing without losing ourselves in worry. We plan for tomorrow while living in today. We learn from yesterday without living there. George lived another 6 months after that conversation with Martha, but they were the most alive 6 months of his entire life. He stopped waiting for the right moment and embraced the moment he had. He listened to his grandchildren, really listened when they visited. He felt the sunshine on his face during his brief walks outside. He tasted his food. He noticed the kindness of the nurses. He was present to his own dying, and somehow that made it peaceful rather than terrifying. At his funeral, Martha spoke. She told the story of how George had finally learned to live in his last months, how he'd spent decades waiting for life to begin and finally discovered it had been happening all along. "Don't wait," she told the gathered mourners. "Don't spend your life waiting for the right moment. This is it. This is the moment. This breath, this heartbeat, this day that God has made." Several people in that church that day changed how they lived. They started paying attention, started being present, started actually living their lives instead of thinking about living them someday. As you prepare for sleep tonight, practice this presence. Feel the surface beneath you. Notice the temperature of the air. Hear the sounds around you. Feel your chest rising and falling with each breath. You don't need to be anywhere else. You don't need to think about tomorrow. You don't need to replay today. Just be here. Just this. Your mind will wander. That's natural. That's what minds do. When you notice it wandering, don't judge yourself. Just gently, kindly bring it back. Like calling a puppy that's run off. No anger, no frustration, just gentle guidance. Here, now, this. Each time you bring your mind back to the present moment, you're building a muscle. The muscle of presence, the muscle of awareness, the muscle of being fully alive. Right now, We'll explore what to let go of and where this path ultimately leads. We'll discover the freedom that comes from releasing what we cannot control. Be here, fully, completely, without reservation. This moment is your life. Don't miss it by being somewhere else. Feel your breath. This one, now this one, now this one. Each breath is a gift. Each moment is complete. Each now is all you need. Rest in this truth. Rest in this moment. Rest in the only place you can ever actually be. Here, now, home. What are you holding on to that you don't need to carry anymore? An old hurt? A disappointment from years ago? A version of yourself that no longer exists? A dream that will never come true? We spend so much energy gripping things that are already gone, clinging to what we cannot keep, refusing to release what's already slipping through our fingers. You're going to learn the most liberating truth of all. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to let go. There was a traveler named Thomas, not the priest, but another Thomas who journeyed through difficult wilderness. He came to a wide river with strong currents and no bridge. The water looked dangerous. Wild animals prowled the surrounding woods. Thomas knew he couldn't stay where he was, so he used what he could find. He gathered logs, branches, vines. With great effort, he built a raft. It wasn't beautiful, but it was sturdy enough. He pushed the raft into the water and paddled across. The current was strong. The journey was frightening, but the raft held. It carried him safely to the other shore. When he reached the far bank, Thomas climbed out. He stood on solid ground, safe, relieved, grateful to his raft for saving his life. Then he looked at the raft bobbing in the shallow water. This raft was so useful, he thought. I worked so hard to build it. What if I need it again? It would be wasteful to leave it behind. So Thomas hoisted the heavy, waterlogged raft onto his back, and he continued his journey, carrying it with him. The other shore was beautiful. Rolling hills covered in wildflowers, trees heavy with fruit, cool streams, but Thomas could barely see any of it. He struggled under the weight of his raft. The raft got caught on branches. It was too heavy to carry up the hills. It blocked his view of the landscape. The very thing that had saved him had become his greatest burden, but he kept carrying it. I might need it, he told himself. What if another river comes? He carried it for days, for weeks, growing more exhausted, more bent, more miserable. Finally, an old shepherd saw him struggling along the road. "Friend," the shepherd called out, "why are you carrying that raft?" "It saved my life," Thomas panted. "I crossed a dangerous river. This raft got me to safety." "That's wonderful," the shepherd said, "but the river is behind you now. You're on dry land. Why are you still carrying what you no longer need?" Thomas stopped. He set the raft down. His shoulders ached. His back was sore. He'd been carrying this burden for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to walk freely. I thought I needed to keep it, to honor it, to be prepared. The shepherd smiled gently. You can honor the raft by being grateful for what it did. You can be prepared by staying aware, but carrying it only prevents you from moving forward. Let it go. It has done its job. Thomas left the raft by the side of the road, and for the first time since crossing the river, he stood up straight. He felt light, free. He could finally see the beauty around him. He could finally enjoy the journey. This is the parable Jesus taught in different words. He said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Easy, light, not heavy, not crushing. Yet so many of us carry burdens Jesus never asked us to carry. We load ourselves down with things that have served their purpose and should be released. We carry past identities. I used to be strong. I used to be beautiful. I used to be important. But that was then. Who are you now? Can you be at peace with who you are today instead of clinging to who you were? We carry old hurts. Someone wounded us years ago, maybe decades ago. We've healed, but we keep picking at the scar, keeping the wound fresh. Can you let them go, not for their sake, but for yours? We carry expectations that will never be met. Life didn't turn out how we planned. Children made different choices. Health failed. Dreams died. Can you grieve what won't be and embrace what is? We carry control. We think if we just grip tightly enough, we can make things turn out right. But control is an illusion. Life flows whether we grip or release. The river moves whether we fight it or float with it. There was a woman named Eleanor in Father Thomas's parish. She was 82 years old and still trying to control her adult children's lives. She worried about their choices. She gave unsolicited advice. She felt responsible for their happiness. It was exhausting her. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't enjoy her own life. She was carrying a burden that wasn't hers to carry. Father Thomas spoke with her gently after she confessed her constant worry. "Eleanor, whose life is it? Yours or theirs?" "Well, theirs. But then whose job is it to live it?" "Theirs, I suppose. And whose job is it to live your life?" Eleanor fell silent. She had spent so much energy trying to live everyone else's life that she'd forgotten to live her own. "They're adults," Thomas said kindly. "They'll make their choices. Some will be wise, some won't. They'll learn, they'll grow, but you can't learn for them. You can't grow for them. All you can do is love them and let them walk their own path. But what if they fail? What if they get hurt? Then they fail, then they get hurt, and they learn, just like you did, just like we all do." He paused. "Eleanor, what are you really afraid of?" She thought about this. The answer came slowly, painfully. "I'm afraid that if I'm not needed, if I'm not solving their problems, then what's my purpose?" There it was, the real burden. Not her children's problems, but her fear of being unnecessary. "Your purpose," Thomas said gently, "is to be Eleanor, to live your own life, to find your own peace, to enjoy the time you have left, not to manage everyone else's journey." Eleanor cried that day. She cried for the years she'd wasted worrying. She cried for the life she hadn't lived because she'd been too busy trying to control lives that weren't hers. But after the tears came something lighter. Relief. Freedom. She began to let go. She stopped calling her children with advice they hadn't asked for. She stopped lying awake, worrying about their choices. She started painting again. Something she'd loved as a young woman but had abandoned decades ago. Her children noticed the change. At first they were confused, then relieved, then grateful. Their mother had finally given them space to be adults, and Eleanor discovered something beautiful. When she stopped trying to control them, she could actually enjoy them. She could listen to their stories without immediately trying to fix things. She could love them without needing them to live according to her plan. She had let go of the raft, and she could finally walk freely. The Apostle Paul understood this deeply. He wrote, "I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength." Content in any situation. How? Because he wasn't clinging to circumstances. He wasn't demanding that life be a certain way. He had let go of control and found freedom in surrender. This is what trust really means. Not believing that everything will work out your way, but believing that you'll be okay even if it doesn't. Trusting that God is present whether you get what you want or not. Trusting that you're held even when you can't see the hands holding you. Let me give you a practice for tonight. Think of something you've been holding on to, something you need to release. It might be a person, a plan, a version of yourself, an old pain, a need for control. Picture yourself holding it in your hand. Look at it. Acknowledge what it's meant to you. Honor what it's given you or taught you. Then, slowly, imagine opening your hand, releasing your grip, letting it go, not throwing it away with anger, not pushing it away with force, just opening your hand, releasing, letting it rest. You might need to do this many times. Letting go isn't usually a one-time event. It's a practice. Each time you notice yourself gripping again, you gently open your hand again. But each time you do it, you're building the muscle of release. You're learning to trust. You're discovering that you can survive with open hands instead of clenched fists. Your breath itself teaches you this. Every moment, you breathe in, then you must let go, breathe out, to make room for the next breath. You cannot hold on to the breath. You must release it. Trust that another will come. Life is the same. You receive, you release, you receive, you release. This is the rhythm. Fighting it only creates suffering. Thomas, the traveler with the raft, eventually wrote about his journey. He ended with these words, "The raft saved my life, but only when I let it go could I truly live that life." Gratitude doesn't mean carrying forever what once served you. Sometimes gratitude means releasing with blessing what has already given its gift. As you settle into sleep tonight, practice this release. Feel your body letting go of tension with each breath. Feel your mind letting go of the day's concerns. Feel your heart letting go of what you cannot control. You've carried so much for so long. You've been so strong. But tonight, you can rest. You can let it all down. You can trust that what needs to happen will happen, and you'll be okay either way. God is not waiting for you to have everything figured out. God is not demanding you carry burdens you were never meant to carry. God is inviting you to rest, to release, to trust. Open your hands, unclench your jaw, soften your shoulders, let it go, let it all go. Practice release, practice trust, practice opening your hands and letting the river carry what the river will carry. You are not the controller of the universe. You are a beloved child, invited to rest. Let go. Let God, let peace come.